If you've tried to quit porn over and over and keep ending up back at day one, you're not weak and you don't have a willpower problem. You're stuck in a cycle, and cycles don't just break one day because you want them to. I'm a certified sex addiction therapist, and what I see consistently is that people who stay stuck in this addiction keep trying to fight the behavior, but the ones who get free from it and actually stay free from it understand what was running the addiction at its root cause. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through how the cycle of porn addiction works, what's probably driving it for you, and what it takes to finally put a stop to this behavior for good. Let's get into it. So why do you keep giving in? Here's the addiction cycle and how it works. Preoccupation, ritualization, sexual compulsivity, and despair. Preoccupation is obsessing about watching porn or being sexual. Then the ritualization separates you from reality. It can induce a trance-like state where it's harder to stop. This could be like taking a shower and getting ready before contacting an affair partner, or scrolling on dating apps or chatting before watching porn or planning a date. Next, the sexual compulsivity. This is the acting out phase. This is the porn use, the pursuing, the affairs. Sure, you feel better for a moment. And I want you to know intelligent people, ethical people, do things that they themselves feel are immoral against their own values. Then next is despair. Almost immediately after acting out, feeling shame. People promise themselves they won't do this again. They feel hopeless, they feel depressed. Then people get out of this depression, this shame and despair by getting into fantasy, and it starts again. Patrick Carnes explains this very well in Facing the Shadow. Then shame itself becomes the fuel. This emotional pain, you can't bear to face what you've done again. You know how your partner would feel, and it crushes you. This drives the person back into the cycle in order to get out of shame, despair, after swearing to yourself you'd never do it again. The feeling of walking into your home after an affair, after watching porn, you walk out of your office and you see your family, the joy and the good in your children, the love from your wife, and the shame feels stronger. Now, shame versus guilt. Shame is I am bad, and guilt is I did something bad. This is an important concept that Brené Brown explains very well. When you have shame, you're taking on the identity. And if you do that, there's little hope, because if I am bad, that means I do bad things and I'm not capable of changing. These thought processes and cycles can be subliminal, but they're still there. And the precursor for the addictive cycle is impaired thinking and your belief system. So that voice of shame. So what this looks like in real life is that someone can hate what they're doing, but still not be able to stop. I've heard so many people and have heard so many stories of people trying to change their behavior and try to motivate themselves. These people are otherwise great, and sometimes in great relationships, sometimes even their spouse says that everything is great except for the porn use or the sexual acting out. This can look like waking up and saying, I'm not gonna do this today. Having a good morning, kissing your partner and your kids goodbye, and then first thing in the office, you pull out your phone or your incognito browser and you start watching. I've heard people even hear themselves in their own heads saying, no, stop, don't do it, you don't wanna do this, while typing in the search terms on explicit sites or swiping on dating apps or drafting a message to old affair partners. The most common thing is right after acting out, the despair and the shame hits. The feeling of weight of the consequences and promising yourself this will be the last time. People shame themselves thinking it will help them not do it again, all focusing on the behavior in attempt to not do it again, but to no avail, because the behavior isn't the real problem. The real problem is the reason they do this behavior at all and why they do it compulsively. When clients first see this loop mapped out, it's an aha moment. It can be an unlock. They start focusing less on the behavior itself. They've been living day after day stuck in a cycle without even realizing it. They get frustrated and mad at themselves. But when you learn the difference between guilt and shame, and you realize your internal dialogue has been shame on repeat, all of a sudden people are motivated to tune into their internal dialogue and try to change it. I teach them to be still and see if there are any other voices deep down inside that have been shut down by that shame voice that took over. Many times, there are more positive thoughts and internal voices that have been shut down and crowded out for so long, they couldn't hear them at all. Challenging that shame story can flip the entire mood and outlook, which has many benefits even outside the battle with sexual compulsivity. I've had clients months and years later feel more at peace in their own minds because they've successfully flipped the script and stood up to the shame story enough times that if it comes up, they can see that it's false. If it tries again, they know enough not to believe it. Additionally, understanding this addiction loop helps people focus less on trying to change the behavior and more on bolstering their healthy lifestyle as a preventative measure. Adding healthy habits that are healthy emotionally and physically to encourage natural dopamine and replace old behavior. Things that increase emotional connections with other people, or things like journaling that help you get in touch with yourself. Things like my favorite acronym, HALT BS, stands for hungry, angry, lonely, tired, bored, and stressed. This helps people understand triggers. It's not everything, but if you keep all those needs met, you really set yourself up for success. Why hiding makes the cycle worse. Secrecy feeds the addiction. It amplifies the guilt and the shame. You're convinced you're alone, and you're the only one in this situation. Fighting this in secret compounds the cycle because you think you're all alone struggling, no one else deals with this, and you keep on failing. Meanwhile, the shame story is going in your head on repeat. Can I tell my friend Mark? No, he's happily married. His wife is beautiful. There's no way he struggles with this. These beliefs are often not completely accurate and send you further into shame, seeking relief without support. If you haven't developed positive coping strategies, then you're back to the unwanted behavior. That same friend, Mark, we called him, might be looking at you thinking the same thing. He's happy, or she has the perfect life. They can't be struggling like I am, and they would never understand. Being on the inside, I can tell you that things are often not what they seem. Even if you are trying to fight porn use and sexual compulsivity, but you're doing it in secret, you're not using all your resources. It has been said that the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. Sexual addiction is an intimacy disorder and will not be solved in isolation. We all have a need for emotional intimacy. It requires deep emotional connection. Many of my clients have never truly experienced this prior to therapy, and they have to learn it as adults. When they do, their life is so much more fulfilling, with deep emotional connections with a partner or friends, and especially sharing struggles. This begins to lose power. You're not alone because someone you told also struggles, or the person you told didn't run away, and they still care about you, which is the opposite of the story that you told yourself. Why burying it ends up feeding the very thing you're trying to escape. The longer you keep it to yourself, the longer this battle will be. Burying it is precisely the reason you are here with this issue. You buried the root problem most likely without even identifying the problem or realizing you were burying it. And then you tried to find a way to feel better. So you chose porn, fantasy, flirting in person or online, affairs, all of which are ways to escape reality and experience the thrill of a dopamine hit. Sure, they feel better for a while, but then you're so much worse off than before. So burying the issue will not solve it. It will grow the problem because this addiction, as with all addictions, tends to escalate over time. Most people end up needing an increase, whether this is time per use, increased frequency, or more explicit content. Just like increasing the number of cigarettes per day or alcoholic drinks per day. Burying the problem only makes it worse. What changes clinically when someone stops hiding and starts being honest, even with their therapist first? I'll explain it like a high school science experiment. The bacteria in the petri dish, if you want it to grow, put the lid on it, put it in a dark corner of the room or the chemistry closet, and it will thrive. If you take the lid off and bring it into the light, it will wither and die. Sharing, even just with your therapist, most likely you will get a response that's calm, understanding, curious, rather than grossed out or shocked by what you tell them. This first step breaks down the walls, allowing the person to think, oh, I told this person, and they didn't flinch. They didn't run away. Maybe I'm not terrible or beyond help after all. It's the first window into acceptance. In therapy, when you get honest, the therapist helps you understand you still have value as a person, even if you do or have done things that most of society feels are wrong. The shame starts to wane because you shared the unthinkable and the person still wants to talk to you. The acceptance you feel challenges that inner dialogue, and you start to think, maybe I could tell a friend. Maybe I could join an SAA group. It challenges the beliefs that you've been telling yourself about what other people will think, say, and do if you tell them, which opens up for more connection and more healing. The acceptance of one person is healing in and of itself. Still more healing to go, but you'll feel that, and it will propel you further down the road to recovery. By the way, if you're watching this and you're ready to work through this with someone who specializes in sexual compulsivity and addiction recovery, you can reach out to us at Nova Counseling by clicking the first link below this video. Now let's keep going. So, what's driving the behavior? What are these behaviors actually doing for the person emotionally? You see, on the outside, it looks like sexual addiction or porn is the problem. Porn is never the problem. Porn is the solution that didn't work. The real question is not why did you start watching porn or watch it compulsively or getting on chats or dating apps when you adore your partner or you think it's wrong. The real question is what deep feelings and suppressed needs have been leaving you feeling empty, and what's at the bottom of you wishing to escape and find relief. Unresolved trauma, unmet needs you've never identified, with no healthy way to cope, no real friends you can go to with your deepest issues. All these are reasons people resort to compulsive sexual behavior, but ultimately they don't fill you up or leave you feeling good. We talked about HALT BS, the acronym. These can be triggers for anyone. And for someone who struggles with sexual compulsivity, makes them more susceptible to that unwanted behavior. I work with people on self-reflection. Sit with your feelings. Learn to identify how you feel. Take a deep breath and look at a list of feelings or a feelings wheel. Most people go their whole lives without doing that. You'll surprise yourself with how many feelings you can feel at one time. You may find underneath it all is stress, loneliness, anxiety, boredom, pain. This exercise alone, feelings identification, can feel calming. Simply putting words to all the jumbled up feelings inside and articulating the right word can feel settling and validating, even on your own. You can begin to see that the root feelings weren't addressed. You reached for fantasy as an escape as a child because it was all you had, and it led you here. Seeing the feelings under the behavior can be enlightening. Take it a step further. What do you need? Connection, physical touch, rest, sleep. You need to eat. You need to express yourself and be heard. You need a friendship where you can be yourself. Oftentimes, the feelings and needs are related. And if you can boil it down and meet your true need in the moment, the feeling of wanting to medicate with a quick hit of dopamine that won't actually serve you can dissipate. Why is it that so many people using porn compulsively have never developed the skill of identifying what they're feeling, let alone knowing what to do with it? Not just people I see, but most people lack self-reflection. They never develop skills to identify feelings and emotions. Most people rush through their to-do lists, their work days, focusing on tasks, accomplishments, productivity. And sitting with a list of feelings doesn't feel productive. It feels silly until you understand what it does for your emotional regulation and for your relationships. This skill isn't something most people learn in school or from their parents even, until recently. It seems like something you've only learned in therapy. I've seen it more recently come up in parenting tools for littles. Hopefully toddlers today will be the most emotionally aware generation yet. Another thing that's important to understand is escalation. Escalation is often a signal that the brain has adapted. A lot of people say the same content does not work the way it used to. So they need more novelty, intensity, time, or more risk. Or they start clicking on things they never thought they would watch. And afterwards, they may feel really disturbed by that. They may think, what is wrong with me? Why did I go there? From a clinical standpoint, we often understand this through tolerance and reward system. With repeated high stimulation use, the brain can start to adapt to that level of stimulation. And then ordinary life can start to feel flat by comparison. A normal conversation, a normal evening at home, typical sex with a spouse, typical relaxation or pleasure, all of that can start to feel less stimulating compared to the intensity and novelty of pornography. They're chasing the same feeling they used to get, but it's not working the same way anymore. This is a really painful place to be, and it's also a signal that this is not just a bad habit anymore. But again, that does not mean there's no hope. So what does recovery actually require? Stopping the behavior is important, but stopping the behavior alone is not the same thing as recovery. Sobriety matters. Interrupting the acting out matters. Protecting your partner from further betrayal matters. But if the only goal is, I'm not gonna look at porn, and a lot gets missed. A person can stop the behavior for a period of time and still not understand why it was happening. They may still be emotionally shut down, dishonest, carrying deep shame, or unsure of what to do when they feel lonely, anxious, rejected, angry, bored, stressed, or overwhelmed. That's why recovery has to be more than abstinence. Recovery is about becoming the kind of person who does not need the behavior to survive emotionally. My clients who are partners of sex addicts say when their spouse has been in recovery a while that they are more attentive, less selfish, slower to anger, and quicker to repair. All these kinds of changes are evidence that the person is in real recovery. Stabilization first. In the beginning, we usually need stabilization. This means putting a self-care plan and accountability in place before going too deep in the emotional work. If someone is actively acting out, lying, hiding, deleting things, making promises and breaking them, the whole system is way too chaotic. Stabilization helps slow everything down so the person can begin to think clearly and act differently. In practice, that might include identifying acting out behaviors clearly, defining sobriety clearly, looking at access points like devices, apps, privacy settings, social media, and times of vulnerability, creating accountability that is more than just I'll try harder, building a daily or weekly check-in rhythm, looking at sleep, stress, work schedule, travel, alone time, and other lifestyle factors, beginning to track triggers and patterns, using that acronym HALT-BS to identify vulnerability states, getting honest in therapy, using therapy groups or recovery meetings, beginning to repair trust with a partner in a careful, guided way. A lot of people want to skip this step. They want to go straight to the deep insight, or they think, I understand why I do it now, so I should be fine. But insight without self-care and some structure is usually not enough. You need to understand the root, and you also need practical guardrails while your brain and your habits are changing. Another piece that cannot be skipped is shame reduction. Separating identity from behavior so that change is actually possible. There's a difference between saying, I did something that hurt people and violated my values, and saying, I'm disgusting and hopeless and I'll never be anything else. The first one can lead to accountability. The second one often leads back to hiding. Now, as we said, shame keeps the cycle alive because if someone believes that they are fundamentally bad, recovery starts to feel impossible. A big part of recovery is helping someone tell the truth about what they have done without making that the totality of who they are. You are responsible for your behavior, your recovery, and the harm you have caused. And also, you are not beyond help. You are not beyond change. I have seen clients have this shift where they stop defining themselves by the worst thing they have done. When this happens, they do not become less accountable. They actually become more accountable because they can finally tolerate looking honestly at their behavior without collapsing into shame or defensiveness. This is a major turning point. So what does life look like on the other side of this? I think a lot of people imagine recovery as just a life where they are constantly trying not to mess up, like they're white knuckling forever. But real recovery is not supposed to be endless deprivation. It's not supposed to be a lifetime of staring at the ceiling thinking, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. For clients who really engage in the process, recovery can feel like coming out from under something. They look back and realize how much mental energy was going into hiding, managing, planning, deleting, lying, fantasizing, and promising themselves they would stop, and then starting the whole cycle all over again. When that begins to lift, there's often a sense of freedom. There's more presence, more emotional availability, and more honesty, and more capacity. People become more present with their partners, kids, and their work. They're not living with the same constant fear of being found out, and they're not living with the same split between who they appear to be and what's happening in secret. Ordinary life can start to become enjoyable again. Because as we said, when the brain has been trained around extreme stimulation and novelty, ordinary life can feel flat for a while. But as recovery takes root, people often begin to enjoy normal things again. Conversation, a walk, playing with their kids, being able to rest without needing to escape. Those things may sound small, but they are not small when someone has been living with an addiction. These are signs of life coming back online. Another thing I have seen is that recovery often opens up other areas of life. When someone is no longer pouring so much energy into addiction, secrecy, and shame, that energy becomes available for other things. Relationships can change, work, parenting. The sense of purpose can return. They learn how to be honest, how to feel, how to ask for help, how to tolerate discomfort, how to repair, and how to live in alignment with their values. I've seen clients become better spouses, friends, and healthier people because they did the recovery work fully. Not because the addiction was a good thing, it caused real harm, but because once they finally faced it, they began addressing things they'd avoided for years. That's what real freedom looks like. It's not just I stopped the behavior. It's I'm becoming a more honest, connected, emotionally healthy person. And that is possible. It takes work, support, time, and humility. But it's absolutely possible. So if porn addiction is something you're personally working through and you want support from someone who specializes in healing from it, you can contact us at Nova Counseling by clicking the first link in the description. We specialize in sexual compulsivity and addiction, betrayal trauma, and helping couples rebuild trust. So whatever you're dealing with in any of these realms, we can help. Again, you can reach out by clicking that first link below this video. And if you want to learn about betrayal trauma and how you can heal from it, then check out this video next.